So when you run for president, your life is supposed to be an open book, right? I mean, that's the deal that you accept when you run for president. It's been that way for a long time. Your professional life, your personal life. The teams of investigative reporters are going to go through everything, right? I mean, they certainly did that with Donald Trump and really most people who run for president. But with Nikki Haley, it seems like so much is off limits and somehow not to be discussed. That doesn't work with me, okay? I am curious about Mr. Nikki Haley, Mike Haley, or Bill Haley, more on his name in a little while. Nikki Haley, during the most important time in her life, is on her own. She's campaigning by herself. Her spouse is overseas on a military deployment. So she does spend a lot of time alone on the campaign trail. This is, folks, a real radical departure from traditional politics, right? I mean, the spouse is there, male or female, every step of the way, usually when someone's running for president.
As we look at Washington, and as rancorous and partisan as Washington looks, I think we'd like a leader who can work with people, who respects other people's ideas and respects other people's opinions. And that's what I think George would do. That's the kind of leader he would be.
The only person in this race who I believe has a chance of uniting this country around a set of common values is my husband, Barack Obama.
In my adult lifetime, there has never been anyone better prepared for the job that awaits the next president than Hillary. Never.
He will make America prosperous. He will make America proud. And yes, this man I know so well, Donald Trump, with your help and God's grace, will make America great again.
You see, Democrat or Republican, if you have a spouse, it's a force multiplier. Now, I understand that the major is, well, he's in the National Guard, so he can't be with Nikki Haley. And that's fine. That's fine. And if you ever forget that, well, Nikki Haley will remind you.
You know, I'm the proud wife of a combat veteran who served in Afghanistan.
I'm doing this for my husband, Michael, and his military brothers and sisters because they need to know their sacrifice means something.
I am the proud wife of a combat veteran who served in Afghanistan.
I wanted you to see that cute husband of mine because he's going to be leaving us for a while. Freedom isn't free. And thank God for our men and women that put on that uniform every day. And thank God for their families.
My husband is a combat veteran. He served in Afghanistan. When he came home to us, there were prayers answered. I'm the wife of a combat veteran who served in Afghanistan. We need to let our military men and women know their sacrifices and their family sacrifices matter.
All right. There's something a little braggy about all this and a little bit off, too, the whole thing. Typically, when somebody joins the military, they're right out of high school, 18 years old, right? They're at their healthiest. They're at their most athletic, so you can put up with the rigors of boot camp and then everything that comes next, right? I mean, military life can be arduous. Or some folks who become officers, they go to one of the academies or they go through ROTC. They might be as young as 22, even 21 years old. Have you ever heard of Marine Corps OCS? It's in Quantico, Virginia. It is one of the most brutal programs ever conceived by man. I actually went through this back when I was 19 years old, and I went back for the second session when I was 21 years old. But there are people who join a little bit older. Pat Tillman, famously, remember the football player? What a hero. He joined when he was 25 years old. So, Michael Haley, or Bill Haley, more on his name in a moment, joined in 2006 when he was 36 years old. Now, I got to be clear about this, okay? Perfectly honorable thing to do at any age. It really is. But everything's on the table, and I know all kinds of people who join the military for all kinds of things. Some folks like the uniforms. Some people wanted the free ride to college. Some people, they just wanted to stay out of jail. So, if you go into the military for political benefit, lots of people have done that too. Believe me, we'll get to some famous ones in a moment. What was going on in 2006? Iraq was 3 years. 3 years into Iraq. Was anybody anxious to get over there? 2006. We were 5 years into Afghanistan. What was going on in Nikki Haley's life? Well, she had already been elected into the state House of Representatives in 2004. Just a hunch, just a crazy hunch that she was thinking about running for governor in 2006. And maybe, just maybe, it would be, well, something to brag about if your husband were in the South Carolina National Guard when you're the governor of South Carolina. Call me crazy, call me cynical, but it's a possibility. Politicians have been known to exploit military service and exaggerate and claim credit where they don't. I'm not saying this about Mike, I'm saying this about Mayor Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary. Nobody was, I think, more kind of greedy about taking credit for something they really didn't deserve all that much credit for. Number one, how did they become a presidential candidate and a cabinet secretary? Because he was gay, right? First, there was that part. Gay, 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 gay. The political press could never stop writing about that. But not only was he gay, he was a military veteran, or at least he could kind of claim credit for having been in a part of the military.
Pete served in Afghanistan. He was a naval intelligence officer. He's been on the ground.
Pete's an Afghanistan veteran. Buttigieg is obviously a veteran of the Afghanistan war. Pete is a veteran. He's a fellow veteran. He served our country with honor.
Wow. All right. The talking points, right? And Pete himself. Boom, 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 boom. I'm a veteran. Get out of my way.
Let me tell you about my relationship to the First Amendment. It is part of the Constitution that I raised my right hand and swore to defend with my life. That is my experience, and it may not be the same as yours, but it counts, Senator. It counts.
He was practicing that line in high school because he had this plan that he would join the Navy Reserve, and you don't have to go to boot camp. You actually just fill out some paperwork. I know that from my own personal experience, my familiarity with the military and that little corner of it, and his own book. Pete Buttigieg wrote it down in his book, possibly shared a bit too much information. Shall we read together? Number one, he says that the big barrier to joining the military, it will always be one of the highlights of my life, but the price of admission was an ongoing flow of administrativia, a fancy way of saying paperwork. Okay, after all, he went to Harvard. Next, please. Military duty was almost like a vacation. Okay. I would be expected to work 40 hours a week, a positively relaxing tempo compared to my schedule as full-time mayor running for re-election. It was actually a kind of political Sabbath. There was time to work out, eat properly, catch up with old friends over dinner, and get a good night's sleep. So this was his stateside service. Then he goes to Afghanistan. He pulled strings. It's in his book. He wants to go to Afghanistan. That was the plan all along. And who did he hold up as a model? John Kerry. Remember that silly salute? Remember his few days in Vietnam and all the medals he put himself into, and it had a film crew follow him around? It was like that from Pete Buttigieg's book. Okay, shall we? I had felt a sense of purpose, maybe even idealism, that can only be compared to the feeling of starting a political campaign. This is when he lands in Afghanistan. These are his thoughts. Next, please. I thought back to 2004 and John Kerry's presidential run, and then remembered that it was during that campaign that I saw the iconic footage of his testimony as the spokesman for Vietnam veterans against the war. These are his thoughts in Afghanistan. He sees the political viability. Look, people do join the military for all kinds of reasons. But we, back here, have this notion that everybody in the military must be in SEAL Team 6, right? It must be hardcore combat. It's not. I mean, there are portions that are, pretty deadly, and others that are not so deadly. There's real combat, and then there are, support roles. Kind of like, you see? Now, we will also emphasize that you can easily be killed in a support role. In fact, when I was in Iraq, embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division, truck drivers, with the fuel trucks. We lost a lot of those guys before anybody else. But military life isn't like that for everybody. The New York Times actually marveled at this, as I did at the same time. The Chow Hall in Iraq, offers a vast selection of food and beverages, ethnic cuisine nights, an ice cream parlor, and occasionally a live jazz combo. The base, like many other bases, also has internet cafes, an impressively stocked store, gymnasiums with modern equipment, air conditioning everywhere, and extracurricular activities like language and martial arts sessions. All right, so for some, it was kind of like a vacation. And there are benefits that go with that. You don't have to pay taxes, combat pay, the moment you set your foot on the ground in Afghanistan or Iraq. And that brings me back to Major Haley. Again, no beef with this guy whatsoever. He's in the Horn of Africa right now at a Camp Lemonnier. I've actually been there, both as a Marine and as a civilian. It's not a picnic, but it's not exactly harsh. There it is, Camp Lemonnier, and that's fine. Look, what happens with the media and with the American people, we have a tendency to give too much credit to folks in uniform. Yeah, there's the danger of giving folks in uniform too much credit. And then you can't ask anything because, well, they served in uniform, or, we can't raise any questions about this. It's too touchy. Somebody will accuse us of not supporting the troops. Those days are over. The military has become highly politicized, and we should be skeptical of everything and everyone. Okay? Who remembers General Powell, Colin Powell? When I was in college, I really liked this guy, the Gulf War, right? All that stuff, and he was from New York. I felt a certain kinship with him. And then he became, the Secretary of State and a Republican who was famous for not supporting Republicans. The military gave him so much status and so much prestige, and the media fed right into it. He ultimately used it for his own purposes, for partisan purposes.
Will you endorse President Obama this race?
Well, I voted for him in 2008, and I plan to stick with him in 2012, and I'll be voting for he and for Vice President Joe Biden next month.
Powell announced he will vote for Clinton, reportedly saying she is balanced, she has temperament, and no matter what anyone says, she has stamina.
I support Joe Biden for the presidency of the United States because those values still define him, and we need to restore those values to the White House.
And people were reluctant to take him on, right? Because after all, the four-star general, some identity politics involved. I don't think we should roll that way with anyone in uniform, out of uniform. We have to be skeptical. And oh, by the way, he's most famous for justifying the war, that hideous presentation at the United Nations. How many times do we have to be disappointed by people in uniform? Mark Milley, I'm talking primarily about the generals, but you got to be skeptical of everything and everyone. The military, they didn't talk straight with us for 20 years, maybe 50 years. Remember all the reports about how well things were going in Iraq and Afghanistan, right up until we lost.
I think that the development of the Afghan army is on a very good path right now.
We've made tremendous strides, incredible progress in the last 20 months.
The solid partnership has been the thing that has been really striking for me all around the country.
It's fair to ask if we're winning in Afghanistan. I believe the answer is yes, and several facts allow me to say that with confidence.
And we've seen some great progress in some of the operations based, even at the tactical level, on the intelligence structure.
They showed me the positive changes they have helped bring about, the villages they can now enter, the Afghan police and forces they are training and trying to improve.
Great. It was not so great, and they knew it, but they kept just spinning us, not being straight with us. And none of this, by the way, is Major Bill Haley's fault, all right? No, it's not. But I think he's being exploited, and I think we're being played, and I don't like it. And I'll have more on this matter when I come back.